Hey everybody, how's it going? Dan Schinder here on Yesshift with
Steven Schinder.
father-son vlog podcast thingamabobber show, and we are both wearing our Close to the Edge 50th anniversary shirts because we're celebrating 50 years of when Yessongs was recorded and filmed, and One Live Badger, Tony Kaye's band at the time, was recorded all at the same night at the Rainbow Theater. And wow, we've got so much to talk about with these two iconic albums. So, Steve, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, like what a monumental occasion, you know. And so we're nearing the end of 2012 or 2012. Look at me, I don't know what year it is. 2020. Yeah, we're nearing the end of 2022. So after this year, we're not allowed to talk about Close to the Edge or the original Close to the Edge tour. No, I'm kidding. We'll probably mention it again at some point. But yeah, so the context for what was going on in 72 by the time these shows were recorded. So in 1972, Yes had released Fragile and Close to the Edge and brought Alan into the fold that summer. Meanwhile, ELP had also released Trilogy, Jethro Tull put out Thick as a Brick, Gentle Giant put out Octopus, another one with Roger Deanart. Claire Hamill, who we interviewed recently, released her debut album, One House Left Standing, her very first solo album. And Renaissance had released Prologue. We also interviewed Annie Haslam of Renaissance a month or two ago, somewhat recently.
And you know, when I hear you read off those albums, this may have been the most seminal year for progressive rock and the most bar-setting benchmark. You would have had to have serious pole vaulting skills to get over that bar that was set that year. And I'm not sure anyone has since then, maybe not even the bands themselves that you mentioned. Yes, of course, arguably with, I don't know, Relay or Tales, but probably not in most people's opinions. So just an amazing time to be alive. I was, to experience this music coming out and everything like that. And then Tony Kaye in an early 2021 Rolling Stone interview said, Yes came back from the American tour at one point and had no equipment. John asked my band Badger if they could rehearse where we were rehearsing. We actually had only been in operation for about 2 weeks, and we had enough material for an album. But we had no intention of recording or even getting a recording contract. And so the band came into the studio, we chatted with John and said, we're going to record the next show, which was at the Rainbow. They were recording a live album, and so we tagged along, supported them. One Live Badger came out of that. After that, Badger wasn't exactly a huge success. I did another album in New Orleans and decided I wanted to move to Los Angeles. And he still lives in Los Angeles. He's been in Los Angeles.
No, since. Actually, he moved to Florida sometime within the past couple of years.
He did?
Yeah.
Florida will never be the same. I didn't know that. And many people don't know this, but along Tony's journey, in between Yes and Yes, he did some musical soundtracks for documentaries and things on PBS and stuff like that. So anyhow, take it away.
Yeah, so Badger opened for Yes at the Rainbow Theater December 15th and 16th, 1972. So One Live Badger was definitely recorded from both of those nights. I think for a long time it's been generally agreed that Yessongs was filmed on the 15th, but I've seen recently that something suggesting that maybe some stuff from the 16th ended up on there as well. But
I can chime in with that with some very easy, verifiable information.
Oh, is it just the clothes they're wearing, or
No. It's that's a good one though, because I catch that stuff. It absolutely was recorded on both nights because there's different versions of Steve Howe's acoustic. Rick Wakeman's solo is different. There are some differences, so they had to have recorded both nights. And when I say differences, the film from the vinyl, the original album.
Okay, yeah, the triple album. I think what we know for sure
is... Wait, there's a third one in that set? Let me get that.
No, but The live album, I think I remember reading that Starship Trooper on that album is from one of these shows, and like the other tracks might be from different nights. But yeah, like what a time. And so One Live Badger was released in 1973. The same year we got the Yessongs live album, as well as the likes of Dark Side of the Moon, Brain Salad Surgery, Lorik's Tongues in Aspic, and Selling England by the Pound.
Okay, stop right there. So arguably that year may have topped the previous year. Those are 2 years.
I feel like you could make arguments for 72, 73, and even 74.
You know what? Made in Japan by Deep Purple came out. Machine Head came out. This The Song Remains the Same was filmed because it was the Houses of the Holies tour. Just an amazing... There will never be such a lineage of music coming out by so many artists that means so much, all like at the same time, just this machine barfing out such iconic music. I don't think it'll ever happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's happening, but it's just not as in the spotlight and not feeling like the first time doing this sort of stuff. That's always been my stance. But yeah, I get what you mean. It was like such a lightning in a bottle time where everything felt new, you know?
Yeah.
And the Yessongs film was released in 1975. IMDb lists October 19th for a New York City release, which seems to be about right because it included the promo for Steve Howe's Beginnings, which was released at the end of that month.
That's right.
Yeah, with him and Patrick Moraz both in that thing. So interesting stuff. So do you want to start by talking about One Live Badger first?
Yeah,
or?
Let's do it in the order of the show. Absolutely. And folks, chime in. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what your favorites are from these albums or the film. And, you know, this is your show too. We want you to be part of it. We have tons of comments to read from posts that we did leading up to this show.
Yeah. So One Live Badger, real quick, the track list for side one, we got Wheel of Fortune, Fountain, and Wind of Change. And then on side two, we have River, The Preacher, that one being written by Brian Parrish. And then lastly, On the Way Home. And the personnel for this lineup, we had Dave Foster on bass guitar. You know, he had worked with John Anderson in The Warriors and co-wrote a couple things on Time and a Word, at least. So he and Tony Kaye like began working like around the time, like either really close or around when he left Yes. And of course, we got Roy Dyke on drums, Tony Kaye on keyboards, and Brian Parrish on lead guitar. And Roger Dean did the art, Martin Dean did the photography, and John Anderson is listed as a co-producer along with Jeffrey Haslam and the Badger band itself. So yeah, was this your first time listening to the album, Dad, or had you heard of it or heard it before?
This is the first time hearing it all the way through at once, and I probably haven't heard it in, I'm embarrassed to say, maybe 40 years. So I like that, though, because it was very fresh for me. And excuse me, folks, I'm getting over a cold. And I got this reflex cough. But I have a take on that album that I'm curious if those familiar with it and you, Steve, having recently listened to it, feel the same way. First of all, it's very energetic. It's great. It captures the music of the time. It's not nearly as progressive as the rest of the bill as Yes. I hear almost like a progressive version of the Allman Brothers in this music. It sounds very American in some ways.
It definitely does.
Okay, cool. I didn't tell Steve and I don't talk about this stuff. I just told him I have a take, and I think people are either gonna agree with me, think I'm crazy, or both. And he said, "What? You got to say you like One Live Badger than Yessongs?" And I didn't say anything, so he started to wonder. But okay, so you hear that as well?
Yeah, it's like I think Tony was really falling in love with some of the American styles, and he even moved to America like a few years after this, I think. And after, one of the reasons that he and Yes, they had musical differences. Tony has said he wanted to go in a more blues rock direction, and you can definitely hear some of that here on One Life Badger, but it was also a bit more prog rock in some places than I expected or
Me
remembered.
Too. Yeah, because I was surprised because one of those musical differences was that he didn't want to work with the orchestra, really. He didn't want to work with synthesizers. He wanted to stay traditional with the Hammond organ and the piano, yet there's some great synthesizer work on this performance.
Yeah, and you can definitely, like, hearing just his work on the Yes album, even you can hear why, like, the evolution going from that to Badger. Like, he feels very much in his element on Badger. Like, it feels more the type of stuff he'd want to do, whereas he said that Yes wanted a more orchestral sound, which is what they got with Rick Wakeman at that time. And yeah, One Life Badger, it's definitely, I think I've heard it at least once before, because there were like some guitar parts on the second and third tracks, I think, where I was like, oh, I think I've heard this part before. Like, it sounds very familiar. So I'm pretty sure I heard it before, but listening to it this time around, it felt fresh again and like all new. And my expectations, I didn't really have expectations, which I guess is the best way to go into something, because like I really enjoyed this. It was very lively, energetic, and there were a couple points where I even forgot it was a live album, and then the audience would be clapping, and I'm like, oh right, it's a live album.
You know what? There is a song. Oh, I didn't make a note of it. There's a song that has a riff that sounds just like another band's song. What was that? Folks watching, listening, help me out. It's like almost it verbatim.
Oh, is it the one from Wind of Change where it's like dun 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 dun? Is it that?
Yeah. That sounds like what's the song it sounds like? Senior moments are just wonderful. I can't think of it right now, but it's like the same riff as another song. Why didn't I make a note of that? I don't know. Anyway, listen to the album, folks. It's great. It's too bad they didn't film that as well. I mean, the stuff was there. What the fuck? And it was Steve Howe's brother that did that, right? Am I right in remembering that? Peter?
Yeah, Philip Howe.
Philip, sorry.
Yeah, it was definitely a P name. You were on the right track. But yeah, he filmed the Yessongs concert. And yeah, I would have loved for the Badger show to have been filmed.
It's very energetic. I would love to have seen it.
Yeah, just watching those back to back, it kind of reminds me of how when I saw the Royal Affair tour a few years ago and seeing all four of those bands back to back, I was like, man, I would really love a Blu-ray of this that shows all four of these bands performing back to back. And so we only have, I know that Yes put out the Royal Affair tour live album, which feels incomplete to me, not just because it omits Gates of Delirium, but also because it omits those other bands. Like, I know it's supposed to be a Yes release, but you have that on one thing, and you have John Lodge's stuff on a separate live album as well. And it's like, I'd love for all these things to be together and as a concert film to like re-experience what it was like seeing all of these guys on stage. And so I think listening to One Life Badger makes Yessongs, the film, feel a little more incomplete. You know, it was already missing a few songs already, but now it's like, man, I would love to live in the reality where we have both of these acts, like both of their set lists of being filmed in full and released in one package or double feature type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder why they omitted Gates of Delirium.
Yeah, I think maybe they're saving it for the Relayer tour that they're hopefully still doing this coming year. They're still advertising it. But yeah, it's an odd choice, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what do you think of Well, should we talk about the cover art for One Life Badger or save that for later?
No, we could do that. Yeah, I like it, and it does look very Roger Dean-esque. It's not the first time we've seen Roger. If you even take it to that point, it's not the first time he drew animals, because you've got those elephants in that one.
Yeah, OC Bisa.
Yeah, Osibisa. You
You got Octopus.
Octopus with Channel Giant. That dude was busy those years.
Yeah.
You got the fish on the mushroom in one of the Yessongs panels, which, by the way, when I was 14, I think when I was 14, I painted that on the inside of my bedroom door. The big mushroom, wow, and that fish, yeah.
Yeah. I like this cover. It gives it a very wintry feel. Like, yeah, One Life Badger and Yessongs both feel kind of wintry. I mean, they were both filmed in winter, so there's that.
Yeah.
Or maybe right before winter, technically. It was probably
December.
snowing. Yeah, December.
Yeah, it's very December-y.
Yeah. And yeah, One Life Badger, there's even like bits of I was kind of surprised, a little bit of a Christian influence on stuff like The Preacher and On the Way Home. So there's that as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Of course, Yessongs has a bit of Hallelujah. So for those who celebrate Christmas, I guess you can make the case like if in that way, in that
because
manner.
Of the month that it was filmed,
Yeah.
very possibly.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I see a couple comments from Scott Snavely, who says, my first concert was Yes in 1975, Relayer Tour. What an iconic band. And he also says Roger did the artwork on Ann Wilson's new album. Yeah, we talked about that a few months ago. It's a pretty good listen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree. One Life Badger, it has like some funk and some blues rock, I suppose, but it still feels a bit more proggy than I expected, like I said, which is a cool mixture. And like, how would you compare it against Yes music? Like, how different would you say Badger's music is based on this?
I think my first take on that pretty much sums it up. I see it as more American sounding and progressive Allman Brothers. Allman Brothers is what it sounds like. Allman Brothers. Sorry, I keep saying almonds.
Yeah, well, like the nut.
Yeah, Allman Brothers. It sounds like progressive Allman Brothers. It sounds like there's some riffing and jamming going on, and that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. So
what do you think?
Yeah, I can hear the Allman Brothers comparison. I was also thinking maybe a bit of Led Zeppelin, perhaps. Like maybe there's a bit of that. Like some parts of it lean closer to, like, I guess what I would call normal rock. I don't know if there's a better word for it, but yeah, it definitely leans a bit to that in some places.
Non-prog.
Yeah, non-prog rock.
Prog light.
Yeah, it kind of like switches back and forth, I guess. You do get like these 7-minute songs, which is cool. Yeah. Very much in the tradition of prog. So what do you think it was? We could get into Yessongs in a moment, but what do you think it was like for people who were there, like watching both of these acts back to back?
If they were true Yes fans from the beginning, to see Tony Kaye open for Yes must have been weird, but it must have been a super treat. And I wonder if he and Rick conversated at all backstage before,
conversed,
in between. Conversed. Did I say conversated?
Yeah.
Conversationisms. I've never heard anything about that, and I wonder if they even saw each other. But they got a tremendous show. Plus, to be at a show where both bands put out live albums from that and won a film, what a treat,
Yeah, and we've seen from like the Yes Years documentary that Rick and Tony seemed to get along pretty well
Yeah,
in that in '91 at least. You know,
yeah,
joking about like this is where we bunk under the stage or whatever. You know that stuff I always found really funny.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so with Yes songs, boy, where do we even begin with this? But like we
Um,
talked a bit about it a year ago, but yeah, where do you want to like go with this part of
I
the
th-
discussion?
I think let's start with the cover art. Let's start with that.
Okay.
So you've got a would that be called a double or triple gatefold? It's three panels but two seams, or is it?
Um, well,
Yeah, right. What would you
yeah,
call?
for the live album, I guess, but the video uses like one of the paintings as its cover.
Right. And you know what? I'm sorry. I totally spaced. Let's go back to One Live Badger because I forgot to show the artwork. There we
Oh,
go.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I got so enthralled in the conversation. I forgot. Oh, we got graphics. So there's Roger's art, One Live Badger, like Steven said.
Yeah,
That's
the
what my
cover.
yard looked like a couple days ago because it snowed here where I live in Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix. And then you've got the entire album. Really great at the nature pics, whether it's foliage or
Yeah.
animal fauna.
I think looking at it, if I looked at it without context, not knowing what it was, I might not know right away that it's Roger Dean, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Other than the font, his own font there. Other than,
Right.
but on the other hand, the gradient of the sky and the colors on the branches, the way they're blotched and modeled, that
Right.
excuse me, that looks like his style. And then
Yeah.
moving on to
And
dun,
we
dun,
also have
dun.
a picture of the band, right?
Oh, there we
Yeah.
go. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shinder. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, those are some nice shots.
they
It's
are.
like they're like our only window to like what their show looked like, and it's like, man, I would love to see a film of this.
Absolutely. Oh man, I wonder if there's anything anywhere. Notice right here Roger's logo,
Yeah.
the glider.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I never noticed that before. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on to this one. The only artwork Roger's done that I know of that has a chocolate sundae, a big one, so much so you need a path to get up to
Yeah,
it.
the swirls.
Yeah, this is just so iconic. And here's the DVD cover. We don't have a picture of that mushroom with the fish on it that I referred to earlier. But this is just beautiful artwork, iconic artwork. The first time he used that Yes logo where he combined it with another word.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It predates Yesterdays and Yes shows and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Yesshift, and our previous name before that, which I'm not allowed to mention.
Yeah, and I'm still working on the Roger Dean documentary thing we are alluding to. I'm trying
Cool.
to get it finished for like this coming week, hopefully, but just a little update for
And gosh
people.
darn, remind me tonight or this weekend, I need to send you more music for that.
Okay,
I
yeah.
just remind me this weekend will be the best time. Okay. Yes, songs. Was anyone watching us there? Where does that album sit for you? If I may, I'd like to chime in and then have questions for you, Steve. And all this applies to the audience. So I remember I was 14 and I got Yes Songs and Close to the Edge on the same day. And because I'm so much into live music and I love learning about bands through their live music first, I put on Yes Songs and I was very pleased. I was a Yes fan already since Fragile, and I was very pleased that on the album there's 3 tracks with Bill Bruford. There's Long Distance Run Around the Fish and Perpetual Change and a
Yeah.
drum solo, which is great. But that album, that was my first listen to Siberian Kachoo and You and I and Close to the Edge. And then there's all the other songs. Yeah. Then when I put on Close to the Edge, it's so different.
Yeah.
It took me a while to really get my head around it. But the energy in just the audio of those performances is amazing. Then when the film came out, I have so much to say about that I'll save that. But the artwork is amazing. It's an amazing, you know what? It might be one of the first, let me think about this and give me your input, folks. It might be one of the first albums that came out that's really like a package. You know, nowadays you get like the box set and it's got postcards and a booklet. And this was a 3-fold panels with sleeves with 3 albums and just, it was a complete package. And we're talking 1973 when that came out.
Yeah, that's one of the things that they talked about in that Yessongs 40 Years Later documentary we watched a while back. Mm-hmm. That it was with Roger Dean and maybe a couple of the other guys were talking about how, you know, it really felt like a package, you know, back in those days, you know, with the vinyl and all that.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention was the energy, and this is no slight on Bill Bruford. I love Bill, but they're just so different. It may be the most different personnel change that any band's ever had in styles of the way one musician plays, from Bill Bruford to Alan White. But the energy and different style that Alan brought to the other songs, like Yours Is No Disgrace and Siberian Kachoo on the album and stuff like that, was just great. You know, just that it's amazing. And then when the film came out, we'll get to that. But what's your take on the album? How old were you when you heard it? Because I don't remember. And where was it in your Yes catalog chronologically of listening to their music?
Well, for the live album, my first time listening to it, I think, was in 2008. So it would have been almost 14, I think.
Which is when I heard it. How weird.
Yeah, and I remember...
I mean, not when you were 14. I heard it when I was 14. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was after I'd listened to almost all of the Yes studio albums up to that point. And okay. I remember listening to the live album and thinking, wow, this might be my favorite live version of Starship Trooper. You know, it might be able to rival the Keys to Ascension version. But I think since then, it's the Keys to Ascension version for me, because that's the one I know best. And the drum solo on Perpetual Change was just amazing. It was great. But it's kind of funny. I was kind of like the reverse of you with these albums. I listened to Close to the Edge first, and then when I listened to Yessongs, it's like, okay, yeah, some of these songs feel very different in this context. And, you know, recently, on a couple other places, you know, like Yes Music Podcast and I think Awaken, the Yes tribute band, even like posed this question, like, you know, Close to the Edge versus Relayer. And for me, I feel like Relayer, it feels like it already perfected the live sound on it. Like the songs feel like they're their fullest forms. Whereas when I listen to Close to the Edge, you know, the album, the epic sounds like it's perfect already, but And You and I and Siberian Kachoo, I can tell, like, I imagine they're in a studio as opposed to on a stage. Whereas with the live versions, you know, with all the various ones with Alan White, it feels more full, like those 2 tracks. So I think for me, Relayer gets the edge, but goddamn, Close to the Edge is so good, you know?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, absolutely. There's a comment I want to read from Scott Snavely. Scott, thanks for chiming in. Tell us where you're watching from. He says, I'm still impressed Alan White only rehearsed 3 days before drumming on this live album. From what I've heard, is at the top of my list along with Relayer. So he actually rehearsed only 3 days before the tour, whereas the live album was recorded in December and the tour started, I think, in July, Steve?
Yeah, it started in July. And recently, I think we mentioned this before, there's a re-release of the Progeny box set from several years back where it has 7 shows from that tour, and it's been re-released in colored vinyl, so that's really cool. You get to hear like different documentations of the shows and little quirks here and there. I vaguely remember there was one show where they had to repeat a little bit of Heart of the Sunrise because I think they messed up a little. But
Oh, really?
yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. That like those live shows on that box set. Just I'm glad that they exist, and I wish they'd put out more archival stuff like that for subsequent tours, if there is stuff, which there probably is. But yeah.
Interesting. And Scott is watching from Odessa, Texas. Coincidentally, why? Because my father's mother was from Odessa, Ukraine. So there you go. Hello, is this thing on? Try the roast beef. It's great. I'll be here Thursdays and Fridays. 8 drink minimum. Okay, so let's talk about the film. And first, I'm going to show the DVD again. So the film, watching this again today for me, and this is the one thing I did tell Steve before we came on live. I said, I forget how fucking good this is.
Yeah.
As old as it is, with the old gear and the old lighting, and it's shot, not to Philip's detriment, but the stage is so darkly lit with just spotlights. It was so different then, but this album and the performance is so good and so iconic. I just love it. It really brought back memories for me because I saw the film when it came out, or the year after. I was 14, I guess. I can't do math in my head right now. I was 14 when I saw the film, and it was the first time I ever saw, because I hadn't seen Keith Emerson's setup before then, or Tony Banks, or anyone else for that matter. All those keyboards and the cape and all of their fashion and the music. It's like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I saw it after I saw Led Zeppelin in concert, which is what made me decide to switch from oceanography to being a professional musician. But when I just saw all that, it just was like, wow. There was this movie theater near where I grew up that only played rock movies on certain days. And I'd go back and back and back to see Yessongs and The Song Remains the Same over and over and over. Went with my mom once to see Yessongs and The Song Remains the Same. So watching it again today was great. And yeah, even though it's a few months ahead of Alan only having 3 days to rehearse for that tour, as Scott said, his playing is amazing. The energy. I don't know if I could say enough about how great I think this performance is, how way up the ladder, no pun intended, it is in its place in rock movies, especially given the time and how much it means to me personally. However, having said all that, I can't believe 2 things. One, why, as Tony Jefferson, our friend and fan, said, in a comment, why isn't Firebird Suite, Siberian Khatru, and Heart of the Sunrise in the film? That's number 1. Number 2, why does the film start with animation of the fragile earth rather than the gatefold of Close to the Edge, since that's the tour? Number 3, that puts myself on the spot. Let me just drive my own bus over myself. All the years I was friends with Alan from November 1989, all the times he was a guest on Drum Talk TV, when you and I interviewed Bill Bruford, when you and I interviewed Steve Howe, all those times, why didn't I ever, or you, but I'll put it on me, ask that question, hey, what happened to Firebird Suite, Siberian Khatru, and Heart of the Sun? Why does it start with my favorite Yes song, All Good People. That's like
I was gonna make that joke that the film begins with your favorite Yes song. I've seen All Good People.
It's a small world of Yes music. Thanks. I knew you would too. And then it goes into, bless his heart, one of my favorite musicians. It goes into Steve Howe's The Clap. It just doesn't
just clap. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It just seems such a odd way to start a concert film, given that you put out an album that starts a different way with all this energy and another song from the tour, that the film is, it's like, what went on back then that it's so disconnected? And it's still amazing, but that question I don't know will ever be answered unless we can get Steve Howe back on, or we'll ask Rick.
Right.
Those are the only two I think that could answer it.
Yeah, I did see a comment from a fan who might have a sort of an answer, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. I'd love to know that, because it's whatever the answer is, without hearing the answer, reading the answer, it's whack. It's whack. Sorry, Yes Official, it's whack. But it's still along with The Song Remains the Same. And if we could even count Pink Floyd Pompeii, which isn't really a concert film, so okay, let's stick with Yessongs and The Song Remains the Same are the most iconic 70s concert films, I believe.
Yeah, I may have watched the Yessongs film when I was a kid. I definitely saw snippets of it on the Yes Years documentary when I was very little. So, you know, those bits where they'd be like, close to the edge, down by the rip, and like switching between versions of like All Good People and Yours Is No Disgrace from like the Yes album lineup to the Yessongs lineup. And just so, but I didn't get I was actually trying to dig for my DVD of Yessongs.
Oh, is that what you're okay.
Yeah, it's just too much work to do right now. But I remember I got the DVD around that time I mentioned earlier, like 2008, I believe, and watching it in full, and yeah, it still holds up. Even watching it again earlier today, it still holds up. I know people, and I kind of agree, the audio is kind of murky, like it could be better, but like earlier today when I was rewatching this thing, when I got to Close to the Edge, I don't know what possessed me, but I started like dancing along to it and singing along to it.
It might have been the LSD.
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
I'm teasing.
I felt 5 years younger. I felt 4 years old again, just like doing that to that whole song for like 20 minutes or whatever it was, and just it was like falling in love with that song again, weirdly
That's
enough.
really a great version. And, you know, Alan really brought a lot of energy, a different energy to the band. And the other song that you hear that in a lot is Yours Is No Disgrace. Freaking rips on fire, right?
Yeah, what's funny is this time around, after they finished Roundabout, I was like, okay, the movie's over. And then Yours Is No Disgrace. And I'm like, oh, damn, I forgot like they do Yours Is No Disgrace after all this. We're just so used to Roundabout being
the last song.
Yeah. And, you know, they only have the Verm part of Starship Trooper for the credits in this. Yeah. It's like, you know, we didn't get, I think our first time getting an official release of Starship Trooper Live was 901-2 Live.
That's right.
You know, the Philadelphia concert didn't get officially released till like the 90s. So
that's absolutely right. Yeah, why isn't that on there too? And I would love to have seen, it wouldn't have fit in the movie, obviously, but I'd like to see what's on Yessongs with Bill Bruford as a package. Even just those 3 songs, a video EP, Long Distance Run Around the Fish, Perpetual Change with the drum solo. I'd pay $50 for that right now. Throw it down, damn it.
Yeah, I think the most we've gotten is the little snippets on the Sounding Out BBC doc. Yeah,
they're
very very brief, and it's like, where is that full footage? Is it in a vault somewhere?
Yeah, exactly. Or the trash bin, like the part of.
Oh my gosh, I hope not.
And then. Looking at my notes. Oh, I have something to say about And You and I.
Okay.
So there's some great versions of and You and I. The live version's interesting and good. There's Key's version, of course, but the version of Yessongs, I think I now have switched teams. It's the best version. And one of the things that makes it the best version is Rick's keyboard sounds are the most majestic, the most cathedral-esque. It's just, listen to that, folks. If you haven't heard it recently, as in today, go ahead and put that on. Rick makes that sound, and that really, I think, embodies Rick's sounds. Everything from the choral on the keyboards to the orchestration to the mini moog. Just the sounds are so iconic. That's the 70s. That's the guy with the cape. That's, I just want to light one up and listen to that.
and Scott chimes in saying best song ever.
Which one? And You and I? Scott?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just from a minute ago.
So, go ahead.
And yeah, going back to Alan, we've talked about this off air, but he's like the most normal dressed one there, which is funny, but he seems so like energetic, he's smiling and whatnot. He seems like so happy to be there, just giving the band like everything it's got and really moving things forward. It's just,
you're right. He doesn't just sound energetic. He looks, you could see it in exactly what you're saying, his physiology, the way he's playing. That part of Close to the Edge that goes, da, da. He's like conducting them.
Yeah.
And he's just, he always played with his mouth open and smiles, and God damn it, I miss him. I'll never forget the last day of me and Enge's vacation in a fifth wheel, and that waking up that morning to the news of him passing. Just, there's still a shadow across my heart. That picture right there is Alan, 42, me, 27, and Steve's older brother, Alex, in my arms at 2 weeks old at Alan's house. I'll never just forget finding that out. Anyways, talking about a couple of these things, let's show some photos. So I mentioned Rick Wakeman and, the cape. Who wears a fucking cape, damn it? And a full Hammond B3 with the drawbar, levers and the clavinet Rhodes on top of it. He's got the mini moogs, and I had never seen that. And then you got the, the mirrors to be able to see him from every angle. Just so cool. And Chris with his butterfly outfit stitched to the arms, and his 401, early serial number cream Rickenbacker bass. Just everything's just so iconic. John, you can't see it here, but John's wearing a button with his son Damien on it, and in between one of the songs you hear Daddy, and I think it's John's son, because it was right in between or while he was introducing Steve Howe or one of the songs, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And
when Steve introduces Clap, he dedicates it to his son Dylan.
That's right. Yeah,
that's a nice little moment there.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. And you hear Dylan yell "Daddy." I don't recall that part now, even though I watched it today. Steve's assortment of guitars: his double neck lap steel guitar, his Gibson double neck white 12-string on top, 6 on the bottom, his ES 175 that he plays in Roundabout and Yours Is No Disgrace, his ES 335, the walnut, the dark brown that he plays in Close to the Edge. I can't remember the model number of what I'm showing right now, but folks, believe it or not, even as a drummer, I'm really into guitars and stringed instruments. I have several, actually. But just what a time to be alive and make music and go see music. Please, can we spin the earth backwards and bring some of that back, at least in the music verse, You mentioned earlier that you feel like it might be happening now. Maybe I'm an old fuck, but I just don't see it. There's some great music coming out, but I don't know if there's music coming out right now that some unborn people will be doing a vlog or podcast about in 50 years celebrating.
Right. Well,
I say that with love and respect. I just don't know if anyone's doing that.
Well, part of that is that some of it just doesn't make it into the mainstream, so people are less aware.
Not only
of it,
that, but I don't think there's as much first events in music right now as there was.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big element. Just like if you look at Brahms, Tchaikovsky, Mozart, and whatnot, that music has survived hundreds of years or 150, whatever, because those were firsts. Yes, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Jethro Tull, Pink Floyd, those have survived the way they have for 50 plus years because they were firsts. I don't know if Genesis, let's throw them in, and Gentle Giant, your favorite band, whatever, from that era. I don't know if there's something coming out. I'd love to be wrong. And I mean no disrespect for anybody that's coming on the Drum Talk TV this month, like Ray Hearn from Haken and, a bunch of other folks. What's the Phil Ehart from Kansas? Throw them in there too. Probably the most American progressive band who have also, they're celebrating 50 years this year. So their stuff first came out when this came out.
Yeah,
I just don't know if that's happening, Steve.
Yeah, it feels like every day there's another 50th anniversary of something. It's really weird.
You know why?
Because
every day there's another 50th anniversary of something.
Oh, yeah.
Next year is Relayer, and you'll hear about it every day, the whole year, because you'll hear it from me.
Well, Relayer...
Wait.
Well, I guess
it's
24, right. but they'll be doing it this coming year, hopefully. Yeah.
So Tales, will they do a 50th Tales? And bring Rick back for that, even if Jeff is still there. No offense, Jeff. I love you, Jeff. Great outfits as well. But Tales, I can't wait to do the 50th on that because I got a lot to say. I'll save it because right now we're talking about Yessongs. So, Steve, what are some of your favorite moments of Yessongs and some of what you feel they're the most enduring?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yessongs has its distinct moments. Like you have Rick playing Jingle Bells, which you don't get on some of the other Yes live stuff. In terms of favorite moments. So
that's not on the album. It's only in the movie.
Right. Yeah, I think Close to the Edge and Yours Is No Disgrace, like we said, everyone's just firing on all cylinders. This version of Yours Is No Disgrace, I don't know if it's my favorite version. I feel like it's between this and the House of Yes version.
I'm right on board. Exactly. I agree 100%.
Yeah, 100%. But the improvisation or the extended soloing, if you want to call it that, it just feels so inspired and so energetic.
And Alan adding those fills in between the yours is no he's just driving it and they're letting him. He had that music is all about freedom, and they gave Alan the freedom to be Alan. And I love that because look what happened with the band. Then you move to putting the Bible to music, as John says, with Tales. Then you go to the most esoteric Yes album, which is Relayer, arguably with Open Your Eyes, but Relayer. And then after that, a whole different thing with Rick coming back and going for the one with several short songs, but then you got Turn of the Century and Awaken, and that just the whole, and a lot of it is driven by Alan's drumming, his songwriting, his influence, and I think his personality, really fit in nicely. Musically, a lot of musicians can fit in. The personality doesn't always transcend how they fit in musically. I'm not saying Bill didn't, so please, folks, don't give me any hate mail on that. That's not what I'm saying at all, but they just scored with him, totally scored with him for decades.
Yeah, and he was very committed to the band. He never left. There was just that breakup where everyone was apart.
Other than that, he was the longest sitting member. More than anybody.
Pretty much. Yeah. So should we go into comments now?
Yes, let's do that.
All right. So
got the hiccups.
Right. So Charlie Nolan says, I bought One Life Badger in June 1973 and proceeded to play that album and its 1975 replacement quite a bit. I think he's referring to the '74 follow-up, White Lady, the second and last Badger album. And then, did you want to read this next one, or did you want me to read a few?
I'll go ahead. Skip Connor says, I got the vinyl when it came out and played nothing but that album. My friends were all saying, man, you're going to get sick of that album. Guess what? Hasn't happened yet. I still recall listening to it on headphones and the first time I got buzzed on weed.
Oh.
I got to try that someday. Perfect album for that, too. That's great. And I'm thinking he's referring to Yessongs?
Well, I was reading it as One Life Badger because in the post I specified the Yessongs.
Oh, under his signature says I love Badger's first album.
Oh, that's for
Nick. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That's Nick Kokosch.
That's his comment. Sorry, scratch that.
Right.
So I read that, so go for John's.
All right, John Puskar says, One Life Badger is one of the best albums I ever heard. Such a great prog showing. I would have loved to have seen them. Alas, I was way too young. There is a river between us. Gotta get across.
Ooh, that's great. I love that. John Swanson says...
Jeff Swanson.
Jeff Swanson, he changed his name, says, great live album. Tony's Hammond playing was excellent. Obviously referring to Yessongs. Just kidding. Yeah, a great Hammond player. And I think that's one of Tony's best musical attributes is he can work the Hammond. Plenty of other great Hammond players. You've got John Lord of Deep Purple. You've got Mr. Evans of Jethro Tull. You got, of course, Keith Emerson. But there's something different about Tony's playing that sounds like Tony.
Yeah. And Nick Cassiapo also adds, I like the cover a lot. Tony Kaye is great on organ. So yeah, very much echoing those sentiments.
Yeah. Joel Perard, moving to Yessongs, says, Yessongs was way too short. Simple as that. I agree. What happened to Firebird Suite?
What happened to
the songs
we
once knew so well? Siberian Kachoo, Heart of the Sunrise, Starship Trooper. What happened? Can you please put out a reissue with that stuff and enhance the video so they're not in the dark so much? And with all that, it's still amazing. So there you go. Read Tony's.
Yeah, Tony Palermo says what there was of the Yessongs video was fine, but there was so much more in the concert. Wished some of that was included, like for instance, Firebird Suite, Siberian Kachoo. So again, echoing what we've been saying.
Absolutely.
And then there was this exchange between these next couple of people. David Long said, I want to see all the missing footage from Yessongs. We know that there has to be some, like the first 80% of Starship Trooper, and of course for opener with Siberian Kachoo. And then Steve Hansen said a friend talked to Steve Howe about this. It was told that is all that was filmed. So
that doesn't make sense though. The stuff was there. You got one button to push after the power's connected, right? It says record. A red light goes on. I'm not sliding fill up. How? Because I don't think that's what it is. I wonder if there's something else to this that no one remembers or wants to fess up to.
Something just came to mind. Could it be that maybe they were short on film to use? Could that be a possibility?
Absolutely. But why would, if they were short on film, wouldn't it be the last two songs and not the first two? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're short on film, you gotta, how do you not get the beginning of the show? I'm writing a letter to my governor. Oh, my governor's a douche. Never mind. A douchey, actually. Anyways, Peter Greenwood says, we saw Yes and Badger at the Hard Rock, Stretford, Manchester, the day after Yessongs was filmed. Peter, by the way, I admire your playing. Thanks for carrying the pseudo torch for Chris Squire. I follow you. I love what you do. I'd love to jam with you. Come to Arizona.
Yes.
Absolutely. With the band Say Yes. Absolutely. It was the last Yes show of the year. Badger were very good. However, the Hard Rock was notoriously hot. Low ceiling, having been a bowling alley. Later, it became barbecue hardware store. I see the connection.
Yeah.
So I went to get a couple of cold drinks. of pop and missed a lot of their set. Guess who was in the bar? Only Rick Wakeman and the crew. The bar was covered in pots of bitter. I was only 16 and I ordered 2 Pepsi. Rick was in his heyday and I was a bit too starstruck to say anything except have a great gig. What a great story. Thanks, Peter. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then Wade Evans says, I have One Live Badger on vinyl and CD. Yessongs I've listened to and watched more times than I can remember. Both are classics in my book.
So, pause. Excuse me. I have a young drum student who's 16, who's a jazz drummer. And he came to me around a year ago, I think, to learn rock drumming. And I've been teaching him Led Zeppelin, Rush, Genesis, Yes. And I told him about this show that we were going to be doing the other night when we had a lesson. And I told him I'm sending him Yessongs and I'm sending him The Song Remains the Same for context of, the history of what we're talking about. Right now, he's learning the most complicated song, YYZ by Rush. That's to get him in shape for the most complicated song. Beyond that, I'm going to teach him Close to the Edge. And I'm going to teach him from the Keys version, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you all know. Okay, go with Wade.
Well, I just read Wade's, but this next one...
Oh, just kidding. Then go with Jim's.
Yeah, this
the
next
Muppet
one
guy.
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, if he were still around. Oh. Yeah, but so Jim Henson says, I had no idea, and that's in reference to the shows happening back to back, but Jim says, I recently found a good condition copy of One Live Badger after only hearing the one track from the Yes Family Collection CD. It has some great moments. Knowing now that it was recorded the same night as Yessongs, that really gives me an incentive to listen to it again and do a deep dive on it.
It does make it more special because of Tony being part of the family and everything.
Yeah.
It does. And then Mike Farrell says, still have my vinyl of One Live Badger. Wish that lineup could have stayed together. Excellent album. And then we got one from Mike
Olejnik, I think.
Okay. Says, excellent live album, full of energy, so much soulful spirit. Wish I was around back then to see Badger. Thank you, everybody, for commenting on the posts and chiming in. Steve, are there any other comments? And please check the Drum Talk TV page as well. I don't think that...
I see Greg Diener says, hi, Dan and Steven. Love this. Yesshift.
Great. Thanks, Greg.
And Don, Peter D'Amore says, Alan and Rick are the outstanding performers on Yessongs for me. Progeny made me realize and commit to that opinion. Yeah, that's great,
Interesting.
Peter.
Yeah, thank you. When we look at Yessongs and the place it holds in prog rock history, rock film, concert history, I don't know if there'll be a first film of a band that will do that again. And again, I think it comes to the fact that back then, a lot of these were firsts.
Yeah, and some of it is also like the mystique of the lighting. It's not as perfect picture type thing. It's very mysterious. And
yeah.
It's like entering another world.
Yeah, and there's something intimate about this. Excuse me, folks. There's something very intimate about this being filmed at the Rainbow as well. And a lot of the camera shots, like when Steve finishes his acoustic solo and he gets outfitted with the double neck and gets the slide ready. And there's something like you're right there and there's a lot of humility in them that comes through as well, and I feel like they're still like this. And Alan was always like that. Chris was always like that. We had Steve on our show. He was still like that. I just love that about them because it's not like that across the board with people of that stature.
Yeah, and it's also fun seeing like all of them with long hair and just bobbing their heads.
Oh,
just
the
rocking out.
animated.
Like,
They were babies. They were
Yeah.
all younger than you at the time.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's scary to think about.
They were. Alan was 22.
Yeah, yeah. John was the oldest, and he would have been 28 at that time.
You're old fart. You're that age
Oh,
now.
yeah, I'm that age now. Okay. Yeah.
That's mind bending if you think about it. Same with The Song Remains the Same. John Bonham was 24. Jimmy Page was 28.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, babies. My wife Fenja has a client coming from Kenya tomorrow, and I've met her, but I couldn't remember how old she was. I said, "How old is she?" And she said she's 28, and we both at the same time said, "Wow, she's a baby." In unison, and Steve's a baby to us, so don't take that as a criticism. He's our youngest of our combined 11 kids. Yes, that was not a typo. That's 11 kids and 19 grandkids. So it's all perspective, and what an accomplishment for both bands to do something that 50 years later means so much. 50 years later, in 50 more years, I want to believe that Yessongs and the music on there holds up, and the people that made that happen.
Yeah,
it's only 50 more years.
Yeah, there are definitely some later Yes releases that are better shot, but I think even then, Yessongs. Yessongs still remains iconic for many, like regardless of the video and audio quality.
And it's not so much the way it was shot, it's the lack of lighting. It's so dark. Even when there's light, it's dark. Do we have more pictures to go through? I think I went through all of them. I did. Just real quick, a montage for those. So here's One Live Badger, the album cover. Here's the band. Moving on to the Yessongs DVD. Pathways and the gatefold. This Christopher, the best of the best, that man. John, the best of the best of Yes's spirit. Rick, just amazing musician. Steve.
Yeah, I mean, we love the different Yes lineups, but this is the classic one. So it's I think this is probably yours and mine's favorite lineup, even though we love all the different iterations.
We absolutely do, and I think this is most. And in reverse order.
Yeah.
The fashion, the music, the artwork.
All the nostalgia, yeah.
Yeah. 4-piece drum kit. Kicking ass, Ray. Seriously.
Yeah, and I'm glad that this discussion will inspire people to like dig up One Live Badger again.
Dig it up, download it, buy it. Don't jack it. Buy it. Pay for it.
Yeah. So
this was a very meaningful episode to me. They all are, but this one really gearing up for it was like, man, this is just such great fucking music.
Yeah. Yeah, and just like getting the different styles back to back. It's like, man, I wish I could have been at this concert seeing both of these bands. But yeah, I guess that'll do it.
That'll do it. What's coming up next over the rest of the month, end of the year?
Right. So before I mention what our next couple of shows are, just a reminder to anyone who may not have caught our previous episode, the Yes tribute band Awaken are broadcasting
this weekend.
A stream of one of their concerts tomorrow, Friday, December 16th at 6 p.m. Pacific.
U.S.
U.S. And you can go to facebook.com/awakentheband to see all the details, and you can buy tickets from Stageit to that website.
I'm going to watch it, and it benefits St. Jude Hospital. What a great cause. So good on you guys.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, we support.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that tomorrow. And so our next couple of shows on the 22nd at, I guess this is 4 p.m. Pacific. We're doing a holiday themed episode, which is basically like Christmas collaborations, holiday songs on which Yes members guested. So,
Not their own stuff, just guessed it. We did that
Right.
last year.
Yeah, so that'll include stuff like a prog rock Christmas and some random stuff here and there. I think what I'll do is I'll make a YouTube playlist that has some of these songs, and I'll pin it on our Facebook page so people can check those out and chime in if they'd like to. And then on the 28th at, I think this is noon your time, 11 a.m. Pacific US, if I'm not mistaken. We'll post the actual time as we get closer, but
Move my laptop off my calendar so I can see.
But yeah, that'll be our end of our year in review type shows.
That's noon my time, the 28th. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So on that note, I want to chime in and tell people, if you're listening on Anchor FM, anchor.fm/Yesshift, dig through our catalog. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, dig through our catalog. Dig through our catalog and please let us know what's your favorite. You have nothing else to do. It's the holidays, right? People check out, you take vacation, make some popcorn, pour a beer, pour a scotch, whatever your deal is, eat some veggies, whatever your deal is, dig into our catalog. This is episode 82, and we have 24 news desk reports. And chime in on that day and tell us what your favorite episode was. This is a passion project. We don't make money from this. We work our asses off with Drum Talk TV and my marketing company, but we make time for this because we love it. It would mean so much to us if you could chime in and say, hey, I heard episode 19. I don't even remember what that was. I'd have to look it up. But I can look it up. I listened to episode, just to give you folks an idea. Let me scroll through here real quick.
Yeah, feel free to tell us your favorites of this year, and not only of our show, but also just favorite topics or releases that we've talked about this year. Like, what's been the highlights for you musically in terms of Yes or Yes related or prog rock releases this year? Because there was a lot of stuff that happened.
Oh my gosh!
In music.
Yeah, episode 19, The Quest full interview.
Oh, that was a year ago.
Yeah, that was a year ago. But
Tom, so they can't include that.
Of the year. So 2022 starts right. Oops, my bad. Sorry about that. Wow, how do you know that shit off the top of your head? So we got Mike Tiano, we got Oliver Wakeman, we've got Chris and Billy birthday episodes, Rick Wakeman's 6 Wives dedication, Peter Banks, 2 Sides, Oliver Wakeman as a guest, Steve Howe, Benoit David dedication, Yes in the 80s book review. I mean, it goes on, Fish Out of Water, so much. So we had Billy Sherwood on, so much. So Patrick Moraz dedication, John Anderson, Elias of Sun Hillo celebration, Yes Tormato, no, Yes Tomatoes.
Oh,
Look up Yes Tomatoes, episode 54. Check that out, right?
Yeah, that was a wild one. Yeah,
that was a fun episode. There's just so much here. We had a bunch of Yes Men birthdays in July. Steve Hackett, Dave Kirshner, Bill Bruford, Jeff Downs, matching songs to Roger Dean and Yes studio albums. Yes, Close to the Edge celebration. Mike Tiano's been on 3 times. Virgil and Steve Howe, Nexus and Lunar Mist. Big Generator. We had Aaron and Joe Emerson on to celebrate the new book by Chris Welch. We had Chris Welch. See what you've been missing? See what you've been missing? Come on, dig in. Give us your favorites. We'd love for you to be a part of our celebration. I'm not allowed to eat it. I'm making popcorn for that episode.
Right. Yeah, so people can also write to us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us at facebook.com/yesshift, and see the archive of these videos at youtube.com/@yesshift. And again, if audio, go to anchor.fm/yesshift. See all the podcasting platforms we're on. We're on several. And yeah, that'll do it. I'm glad we were able to celebrate 50 years of these performances this week.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, everybody. It's not that we're signing off for the year yet, but happy holidays. Happy New Year. Be safe, be loving, hold peace, embrace it, and let's enjoy some awesome music together the rest of the year, what's left of it. And Steve and I have some great stuff planned for big year 2023. Drum Talk TV's 10-year anniversary, January 7th. April 2, I'll be 60.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And my wife says I act 8. I say, can you give me 12? Can you at least give me 12? And then she points to my untied shoe and says, you're 8. All right, folks. Thanks so much for following what we do. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye.